What's up, Wargamers? We're back with another edition of Budget Wargamer, and today I want to talk about whether or not your friendly local game store may survive this current epidemic that's going on worldwide. A lot of you probably have valid concerns. You know, your hobby, your social life, and all that is probably intertwined in some degree where the local game store has become the focal point of where you go during your recreational hours and where you spend a good portion of your discretionary income that you're able to enjoy some of the fruits of your labor and purchase models, purchase books, collect cards, play cards, be competitive, and overall kind of build that camaraderie. And given what's been going on the month of March so far, with a lot of shutdowns, social distancing, limitation of groups, and in some places even citywide lockdowns, a lot of your daily patterns have been disrupted. Some of you may have even been forced to work from home or even been laid off temporarily or permanently altogether, which could affect your income, which could change the income that you can put into your friendly local game store and your hobby in general. But in addition to that, some of the local game stores are choosing to remain open. If you're in the Phoenix, Arizona area, you can head on down to our game store, which is called Baxters Games in Queen Creek, Arizona. We're not really running a full event schedule. We're trying to be mostly responsible, but we are open for retail. We are open for casual gaming as long as the groups don't get out of control, which does include your Dungeons and Dragons groups that are smaller and your Magic Commander pods, your Magic competitive play for standard and things like that. But it's still a great place to go in and pick up board games and models and take your hobby home and play with them. But some of you, I realize, around the globe don't have that luxury, as your friendly local game stores either chosen to close or been forced to close as a non-essential business. And at times like this, it's probably more important than ever that you have some type of recreational hobby to be able to keep your hands from being idle, to be creative, to take your time off, to take your mind off of what's going on out there. But as we had looked forward to a lot of these springtime events right after Gamma, which Gamma did go off successfully in Reno, we see that we've got a lot of closures. So if I can shrink myself here, what you'll see is that Warhammer Fest UK, Warhammer World was canceled. All of the events worldwide was canceled. Adepticon was canceled. So as far as 40K gaming goes, that's something that's really negatively affecting the industry and negatively affecting the players. Both from a social aspect, but primarily from an economic aspect. And that begs to wonder, will these types of organizations be able to afford to continue on next year or not? Then you've got Warhammer spilling over into Magic. Some of your game stores are either role-playing stores, hobby stores like 40K and other miniatures and board games, or they're card-based stores, or sometimes a mix of all of those. Thankfully, some stores have more than one leg to stand on when it comes to it, but if a store was going to be primarily based around card games or on role-playing games, I've seen a lot of financial models where the stores are basically financially driven and incentivized to hold events. They are the event centers, the arenas, if you will, where DMs can bring in their groups to play some role-playing games, where competitive card gamers can get in for a few dollars on weekdays and weekends to be able to compete in different standardized formats for Magic the Gathering. And that leads to the secondary market, a big drive in single purchases and trade-ins and things like that that help feed the store its non-sealed funding. And it's one of the big draws to a lot of these stores, right? Here in Arizona, we've got stores like Desert Sky Games, Amazing Discoveries, ManaWorks, which is now Amazing Discoveries. Those come to mind. There's, of course, Baxters Games in Queen Creek. Win, Play, or Draw, I think, is another one. Phoenix Rising. These types of stores thrive on bringing the people in for the competitive gaming. Not just so much to charge for the head count and the prize support. That does contribute somewhat to the bottom line of those businesses. But really because that drives the need for all those ancillary purchases of sealed product and secondary singles and things like that. Much like how when 40K has competitive events like Adepticon coming up, people will get around and start buying paint to paint their models to be able to field those there, changing up their army lists to be competitive, coming into the store to get some of their practice games out of the way. That way they can attend an event like Adepticon or Warhammer Fest and things like that. So there's a lot of valid concerns on whether those businesses that support this hobby and are your retailer space are really going to survive not just in years to come, but will they be there in April? Will they be there in May? Can they make their rent and stuff like that? So I wanted to open the floor to you guys in the comment section on creative ways that maybe you see in your local game store, focusing on the positive aspects of this. What's their contingency plan? What are they going to do? Not just when the doors reopen if they have closed, but what are they doing now, whether they're closed or not? So you have those two things. If they're open, hopefully they're doing business as usual. I'm sure sales have possibly declined. Maybe they've upticked. It could depend on what their core business was. I would imagine that certainly stores based on single sales for Magic the Gathering and for charging head counts to play Dungeons and Dragons in private rooms, those businesses are probably hurting more than some of the other ones. But also some of the 40K stores are probably taking a hit because they're not able to run their Saturday tournaments. They're not able to run their leagues throughout the week. So people either aren't showing up or they have less of a reason to purchase new things to stay relevant and competitive in that. From a hobby aspect, of course, hobbyists probably will just paint what they've got, purchase some more stuff, take it home, buy the new things for the sake of collecting and things like that. But this is definitely going to affect a lot of the new release schedules that are coming up. Should those companies delay their release schedule? Should Wizards delay the release of Ikoria? It doesn't seem like they are. It seems like they're actually taking all the pre-release kits and allowing the retailers to sell those for people to take home, plug the codes into Arena. And this is probably where you're going to see Magic Arena really catch hold, even though it already has. I mean, tons of people are playing on it. But 40K doesn't have an outlet like that, aside from licensed video games and things. You can't go to the store and buy the new upcoming Space Wolves and Orcs box set and then plug a code in at home and play with friends over the internet, right? You could get creative and you can use some of those CAD softwares and things like that to hang out. D&D, on the other hand, if we look at that, D&D, I think, has really led itself to some of these chat groups, things like Zoom, Skype, where people can get in and DM games and meet virtually. So this is something that unfortunately bypasses your friendly local game store, and you can always buy some of these titles digitally. Hopefully you're buying them in print, so that way you not only have that for the sake of like hands-on value, reference and things like that, but so that you can support a local game store. But it really just seems like the ones that are going to take the hit, I think, are the ones that are ducking the issue and blaming their situation on things. Everyone's going to be affected by this. Everyone has been affected by this. But ultimately, I think the mindset of the business owner is going to determine whether or not they're less successful or more successful or maintaining as a result of this scenario. So what I would like to think is that businesses that are closed aren't just staying at home posting memes on Facebook, aren't just saying woe is me, blaming the governments of their countries, of their localities and things like that. I would hope that they're taking this time to say, okay, I've been strapped for resources from a time perspective. I've poured a lot of time and effort into the store. Now that I don't have my doors open or that things have slowed down, maybe I can focus on setting myself up and taking the time to better my store so that when I reopen or that when the business returns to usual, if you will, that you could benefit from this, that you could really see your store be in a better place than what it was, whether that's cleaning up. For God's sakes, a lot of these game stores have filthy bathrooms, they have dusty shelves, they have dirty floors, you name it. They can be quite gross places to play. And I stress a lot of times with the employees that work at Baxters that cleanliness is more important than anything else. You open the store, you hit the bathrooms, you clean the floors, you wipe the glass, you clean the handles, you clean down the front door, get those fingerprints, the smudges, the God knows what off of things, clean the chairs, sanitize. That's been a daily practice, even though I know that some of the other employees that work there don't hold that at the same forefront. But I feel like this is a time for those game stores to freshen up, to paint things, to replace things, to consider making themselves more presentable. So that's some way you can get ahead. It could be organizing the store, taking your time to go through the singles collections, build a catalog, get them sorted, things like that. You're doing something productive for your business, hopefully, that would help you get ahead. For the other stores that are remaining open, I think it's important to make sure that you stay up on restocking, that you probably are conservative with your new release purchases, but maintaining those if the business warrants those, if the foot traffic and the sales warrant those. It could even be time to reflect on areas of weakness. What's actually happened in your store? What's caused the decline? Was it that you were too heavily dependent upon those scheduled events that usually were a boon for businesses, something that was bringing in people in cash hand over fist on a weekly basis, incentivizing trade-ins and trade-ups and things like that. But really look at it and say, okay, if that was your business and you weren't selling a lot of board games, you weren't selling a lot of books, you weren't selling a lot of models, is that something that maybe you should get into? Is the local market there? That way you can diversify some of your offerings and not just be reliant on this, because this is a precedence. This is something that could take place once and then now become the new norm. What happens when flu season hits next year? Are we going to have these seasonal closures? Are we going to have a lot of guidelines? Because this really set the stage for how we might respond to things in the future. So, I definitely beg you guys to go out and support your local game store in any way that you can. Anything can help, whether it's donating your time, donating money, making purchases, that you can afford, something smart, something that you need, hopefully. That way they can pay their bills and they can stay afloat. And if you are a game store owner, I urge you to reach out to your landlord, since most of us are tied to being in the kingdom of somebody else's realm. You're reaching out to them, seeing if there's any support you can get, whether that's allowances for capital improvements while you're closed to be able to make your store better, or whether that's a little bit of forgiveness or a stretch on being able to pay your rent. We don't know what's really going to come out, but I think right now there could be some compassion, there could be some leniency in asking them to understand. If you're not communicating, then you're not asking, and you'll never get something. I don't expect a landlord to come in and just say, hey, don't pay me. But also stay in contact with your fans, stay in contact with your customers in any way that you can. Hopefully you've built some support groups already. Hopefully you have some chat groups, whether they be on Discord. We use a different platform called Basecamp for our store that's really awesome. You could have Facebook groups, whether they're localized or whether they're store specific. But just stay a part of the community. Hopefully you're in it for the right reasons. Hopefully you have a passion for this industry and that you want to see yourself succeed when things come to the end. But, I'd like to hear some examples from all of you guys on what makes a game store successful. Why do you go to the game store? Let's reaffirm them. Let's tell them that. Maybe they need some moral support. Not just in the comments here, but reach out to them, send them messages, let them know that you still value their business, that they mean something to you. I think it would go a long way in helping them hold their spirits high. So stay tuned for more Budget Wargamer and, stay safe.